To our next Future of Film conference. This session is called Breaking the Mold, Using Artificial Intelligence to Inform Success. Please welcome our moderator, Debajyoti Ray.
Hi, good morning and afternoon to many of you tuning in from around the world. So it's my real pleasure to be the moderator of this really exciting event today. And my name is Dave Ray. I'm the CEO of Rivet AI. We're an AI platform that automates pre-production and budgeting for content creation and helps creators monetize their content libraries through a content discovery system. I'm very excited to have with me my esteemed panelists. Andreas Scarso from the Ingenious Group in the UK. Azurmai from SCRIPTBOOK.
Wow.
And Tobias Quaiser from Synalytics.
Hey guys.
Welcome everyone.
Hey guys.
Hi.
So we'll start off by giving 10 minutes to each of the panelists to talk about their company, their product, what the exciting work that they're doing. And after that, we'll go into some general questions. Our Q&A is open, so if you have any questions, feel free to kind of put them in there. And then towards the end, around the last 10 minutes, we'll selectively be able to take some of those questions. So let me start by opening it up to Nadira Azurmai and to talk about herself, a little bit about how you got into the world of AI, what it is that you're doing at SCRIPTBOOK, and to walk us through your product.
Of course. Thank you, Deb. Well, my name is Nadira, and I'm the founder of SCRIPTBOOK. We're an AI company with actually the mission is democratizing the business of storytelling through AI. Let me just quickly put our website into the chat box because it will make life easier for everyone to follow. There you go. So basically, the company was founded 5 years ago. And the conception of the company happened years before that. I think I was still finishing up my studies, engineering and economics, and I did a master's thesis around the topic of predictive modeling. And yeah, and after many years, I decided to dust it off and just and start a company. And 5 years ago, we wanted to build the first vision that we had was actually building an AI-driven script analysis, content analysis platform. I remember thinking about, okay, how do we start with building such a platform? And our team was doing a lot of research into the film industry, into decision support systems. And very early on, we decided to focus on the script. Because there was plenty of research showing that it was one of the most important predictors. So that was our focal point. We wanted to develop this platform that would be able actually to ingest a PDF file of your story, of your script, and it would analyze it, and the output would be very sophisticated 360-degree analysis that focuses on not only the storyline and character analysis, but also on market insights, audience demographic, financial forecast, etc. If you go to our website, for example, there is a demo with many sample analysis for movies that have been released in the past, so you can all check out what an analysis looks like. So basically, I remember when we gained this expertise into story structure and storytelling, we actually developed a second vision. It wasn't just one, we had a second vision as well. I early on thought about AI, and I early on also believed that AI would become a co-creator in the near future. So with all the expertise that we built, that we gained about story structure, we decided to take those features and take everything that we created and turn it into a generative AI. And that was how our second vision, Deep Story, was actually founded, was born. So you can see it as vision one was SCRIPTBOOK, the analyze and predict system. And the second vision was the co-create system. So Deep Story is actually an AI-driven script engine that allows anybody, so you don't have to be a trained screenwriter or a filmmaker, pretty much anybody can actually generate their own story using the AI. And it really is meant to help you co-create. I'll just quickly, again, give you the link to Deep Story so that everybody can follow the conversation. There you go. There's also information on the website on Deep Story. That was the second part of the vision of SCRIPTBOOK as a company. And then the last vision, so it's a threefold vision. The last vision was trying to democratize. So we had analyze and predict, we had co-create, and we wanted to go to democratize. And democratization meant to us that we wanted to consolidate both products. We wanted to open them up, bring them into a marketplace that would be accessible to anyone. Content creation and this industry, the film business, shouldn't be made or meant to be for the happy few. We really believe that it should be open and it should be an ecosystem where everybody that is interested in content and wants to create should get a chance to do so. So these three products, again, make actually up the bigger mission that we have as a company. I'll quickly, sorry about the many links, go down the marketplace as well. There you go. I didn't have slides, so I just thought to use our website, to have people go to the website and check out all the information for themselves. So this is actually the conception of SCRIPTBOOK and our three visions.
That's wonderful. And Nadira, how would go about using this? Are there different kind of tiers of access? If I'm not an expert, if I'm just about to dabble into AI, what me to test out your products?
Well, the easiest way, first of all, when we developed this tool, we focused on companies. So we wanted to make the software available to studios, production companies, to companies. But then every time I would give a talk in a film market or in a film festival, I had writers, independent producers come up to me and tell me that they actually wanted to use our system, but it was too expensive for them. So we started thinking about help everyone. So the marketplace that is actually currently live as well was kind of answering the questions of that specific group. So we have, of course, the monthly and yearly licenses for companies. But we also have a freemium plan, which allows those segments, the independent writers and the independent producers and independent filmmakers to go upload their PDF file of their script of their project and just have it analyze. The analysis that they get under the freemium plan obviously is quite limited compared to the full analysis. But it's the AI is, for us, it's a full disclosure. We're not hiding anything, so that people don't have many question marks about what's happening in the kitchen. So for us, you go to our platform, it's all there. You can analyze, you can send your script in, and you'll have your analysis as soon as possible. They can view the demo and see all of the analysis. We need to have full disclosure so that people are not afraid of this sort of technology.
That's great. You talked about having a PDF and being able to see the analysis. Can you talk a bit more about the co-creation part? What if I don't have a fleshed out script? How does your tool help me if I just have kind of more of a general idea?
Mm-hmm. I think the best answer to that would be probably, hold on, let me just quickly put a link. This is something, because sometimes I can talk until I'm blue in the face, but sometimes it's just far easier to show something. This is a tweet that was on my personal Twitter, which is literally a couple of days ago before Biden was elected president-elect. I just went to Deep Story and I typed the first action, the first scene header, which was interior the White House, and then Trump is losing it as Biden closes in, and I hit generate. So the AI started to generate, the action part, the dialogue, the characters. And it really shows you how you can, I'm not a writer, but it shows you how you can actually co-create. It gives you ideas. The AI, it's a very creative AI as well. I just want to, to open up this sort of technology so that everybody can create. Let's not forget, we're watching so much content nowadays. The pace of content creation needs to speed up because we're just consuming so much content. And I think an AI like Deep Story is so efficient and so creative that actually anybody who was interested in creating content and writing stories will have a system, will have a tool to their own benefits, and all of a sudden it's everybody becomes a creator.
Really good. I mean, so for the audience, please do check up the chat. Just posted the links there. So the wonderful thing about this is you can go out and give it a try on your own. So thank you very much, Nadira.
Thank you.
Next, Tobias, love to kind of learn more about you and your journey at Synalytics.
You are on mute, Tobias.
No, thanks for having me. So sorry.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
I'm new to technology, so sorry. So I will share a little bit about where we come from. We're a little bit different, and there will be a deck that's being shared by Karen. So if everybody can just follow that deck, and I will give provide a few words for everything. So Synalytic, maybe first to start on this current slide as a background, we're a business intelligence solution, so we help the film industry in the decision making, and we help to provide actual information in real time, whether you're financing films or packaging it, thinking about talent, actors, running release scenarios, thinking about whether you should get a Netflix deal or a streamer deal or a theatrical deal. So all these kind of questions that go along the value chain, that's what we inform. And so let's stick with that. So when I started, my background, I spent 10 years in finance. My co-founder, Dev, he's our CTO. He's worked for NASA for 15 years, building risk assessment systems for launch vehicles. So he was responsible for getting people in rockets and shooting them to Mars, or at least part of the team, analyzing that risk. And so we use his models he developed over time in our analysis. And then Christian Monti, our COO, worked for the studios for many years. So we have that background of studio, 10, 15-year studio experience, independent film experience, NASA, and myself in finance. And this is how we started. But maybe I want to start with AI, because anyway, and what we realize is AI, especially in creative industries like the film industry, is always very, people are fearful when they hear AI. And I want to share this graphic here, and it's really every successful company in the world right now is using AI. And that's what this graphic should show. You can't even really compete anymore in any business if you don't use any kind of form of machine learning AI. And if the next slide, please. And you can see that, for example, even everyone in this room is using AI. I mean, if you use Waze, if you will, I don't know, take a trip somewhere outside of LA or wherever you live, and you take Waze, you use machine learning AI in a very, and to get there faster and safer. So it's something it's embedded in every cell phone and every app that you, or nearly every app that you use these days. And so it's very much a very common thing, and it's very broad. And as Google said, their focus is really going away from the cloud, and I think, to AI, because this is just an assistance system for humans. The next slide, please. And if we go towards, if you talk film industry, on the next slide, thank you. I mean, as we will know, Netflix, Amazon, Disney, YouTube, they all use AI just to figure out what you watch. Here, AI is being used in film, in the film production process. Here you see, a film 80 years ago and film currently, and of course the opportunity possibilities that you have in VFX and modern systems are very different. So you have AI enables you different creative tools these days to help with creating different kinds of stories and having new and being able to provide new viewing experiences. Next one, please. And how we often see when companies don't innovate and don't move on, they fail. And this is just in the slide to show how many companies failed. And Blockbuster is maybe a good example for the film industry. They laughed at Netflix 12 years ago when they came up with new ideas, new technology to solve certain distribution problems or show new paths of distribution. And so now nobody really knows what Blockbuster is, and Netflix is one of the most valuable companies in the world right now. And so you can just see that it's so important to embrace these new technologies. Not only is AI already everywhere, and it's in whether you're a consumer or a company, but even if you don't use it, there are a lot of examples that when you don't innovate, you fail. Next slide, please. The next slide is talking about the industry in particular, and especially the independent industry has been in a pretty precarious situation. These are just figures for Sundance, for example. So if you see 2019 prior to COVID, around 3 billion worth of content or produced content applied to Sundance. So it's a huge number, 3 billion worth of content applying to one film festival in the US to get a distribution deal. The whole theatrical market net of distribution expenses and P&A and so on was 100 million. So you can see there's a huge, 3 billion, 100 million. There's a huge disbalance in the market, and a lot of it has to do, not necessarily with AI, but just looking at the data, and not just, of course, the gut is important, but look at the facts and the data, and that's, in the end, what data and AI does, and I get back to that later, but yeah, the film industry is not in a good space, and that clearly shows it. And it is because there's a disbalance. And in the next slide, you'll see, especially over the last 10 years or last couple of years, thank you. A lot of film companies went bankrupt, and there are various reasons for it, but a lot of times is, decision making that was maybe too risky, maybe it wasn't, oftentimes it's maybe not the right risk framework that's being applied when you operate as a film industry, because film is highly risky, as we all know. And it's a fantastic creative product, but the way it's still a product, it still has to reach an audience. And if you, as many people do, only think about the audience when the film is produced and you're looking for a distributor, it's already too late. You should think about audiences as early as script stage or financing stage, so you understand the path to, hey, how do I get to, how can I make this film creatively valuable but also financially successful? So please, next slide. The good news is the next 10 years don't have to be like the last 10 years. So in the end, there are ways to help you and everyone in this room or in the film industry to better inform your decisions and combine creative gut and experience with data. And the next slide, please. And that's what we created with Synalytic, for example. And just to show a bit, maybe stay on this slide. This is just an overview slide. So what you see here is a screen that shows different tools. We have different tools of our system. They're shown in this particular screen. So what you see on top are all the different steps that you need to go through to bring a film from script idea to the screen. And it starts with, of course, a story. Then you have to package the story with talent. Then it has to be financed. It has to be produced. It has to be distributed, marketed, and distributed. And especially in the independent industry, all these steps are carried out by different companies. So you basically have like 8 different companies in that value chain, meaning you have a creative producer, you have a financier, a sales agent, maybe another producer, a distributor, a marketing company, and an exhibitor. And none of them are really very much aligned. So often they don't share data, they don't share insights, and each of them lives in their little silo on that value chain, not understanding what happened before, what happened after, but of course making their business model work. And their business model doesn't have to do anything with what the financier might want to put money in that film. Says, okay, I'll put $5 million in that film, and they assume a 2,500 theater release. But then let's say the film is done, and the distributor, they don't care what the financier thought this release is. They care what they think the release should be worth, and they might buy it for $2 million and put it in 500 screens, right? And it's so important to understand that whole value chain and understand as much and have as much information as early in the process as possible. And this is what we do with Synalytics. So basically, we ingest all these different data sets that are out there: box office data, of course, home video, TV data, Paris data, social media data, Rotten Tomato data. So anything that has anything to do with either talent, film performance, or anything in that realm flows in the system, and then you replicate a different workflow that you go through when you analyze film. If you want to understand how valuable talent is, the manual process might take you, hours. In our system, it takes you seconds. We for example, track 550,000 talent, and we rank them by territorial value, media value, social media tracking, so all these insights. You can predictively forecast revenues. So you can we develop predictive models that we're pioneered at NASA, where we understood which factors in film actually drive performance. Budget, genre, of course, the talent involved, the release strategy. So you can understand and run projects based on 19 factors that we saw important, and predict film revenues this way. You can analyze release patterns. So our system basically is like a business intelligence platform, and it does very complex number crunching, but all this is taken care of by the AI and the machine learning. And so as the user, as a non-Excel wizard, or just a regular a film producer or studio executive, you don't have to understand how complex all this is. The system does the calculations and ingest that data set. All you do is use the system to iterate, to learn, to analyze, to research. And this is what we show here. I mean, there are a couple more slides, but I think I'm running out of time. So I just wanted to, so if you focus on this screen, and we can share the deck. This is, for example, for film that's being launched here at the AFM, or being sold here. And based on a couple of assumptions, just created a forecast. And you can see sort of what's the value of Tom Hardy, which territories, which media, which genres is Tom Hardy valuable. What does this film make in the US, in box office, home video, and TV, taking into account current trends, or internationally? Which territories will this work? What doesn't work? What's the best release strategy? Should this go out on 2,000 screens, 3,000, based on similar films? We can show you, or who are the distributors that buy that kind of film. That's normally a lot of information. It takes hours and days to figure out. In the system, you can run such an analysis in 20 minutes. And also, there's a waterfall in there, and there's an ROI you can see down there, and the waterfall takes into account your costs, and it's a system for the user. So it's not us running anything. We're a software company. We give the system to you, the film professionals, producers, studio execs, financiers, and you can use this for your own projects. So that's analytic based. That's how we use the AI, by combining data, work project management that we digitize workflow in a cloud-based system that you can access from everywhere, and it's multi-user, and then we visualize it very nicely so everybody can navigate very easily.
And I think that, Tobias, is exactly the point on having AI nowadays in our industry, is to add that useful tool that is brought by the technology that for many years wasn't available. And so I work for Ingenious. We are not an AI developer. We are large financiers. We invest in movies and television shows, from independent to studio-like. We analyze a huge amount of submissions and data every year, and we have to process a very large amount of key components and elements before we greenlight our process. And of course, we have our Excel models and data set, and there is a lot of experience that goes into play because we work in a very complicated industry that often, as Tobias said, is not very transparent, it's not very easy to read, and there's so many fine details in the production process, financing process, distribution process, that it's a lot to analyze. So what is key to me and for us is to add any useful tools to make this green lighting process more informative and more more educated, rather than just having a man on a computer doing Excel calculation in this decision-making process. Using the example that Tobias had on the Google Maps, even if you know where the direction is, you ask the AI to tell you what the different routes could be. And of course, it doesn't mean that that's the quickest and always the best route, but it's an assistive tool to make that process faster, more more informative in itself, and based on a greater amount of data. And I think if the question is that going to replace the experience of a film executive or a studio, the answer is no. We don't want to lose our jobs to a machine, but at the same time, you have to acknowledge that adding any tools and technology that could make that process a better process, it's very necessary to survive in this business. And the reality is, a lot of companies are already using it. The platforms are using it. A lot of distributors are using it. And from our end side of the spectrum, we want to be on the very forefront of those companies being able to have the best tools to analyze those decisions. I think what's interesting is usually when you're assessing the green lighting process, there's so many factors that can change, and to analyze the changes, it does take time, and sometimes you get very distracted in what the potential scenarios could be. AI for us come into hand because it's a very quick way to look at any possible scenarios, and you still have to make a decision within that, but suddenly you are being presented with a huge amount of information that's much more accessible than what it used to be just on an Excel file or a Word document. So I think guiding that decision process, not making the decision process for you, but like there's assistive tool, that is the key of using AI for me in our industry.
That's really great to hear from your perspective, Andrea. Can you talk a little bit more about your evaluation criteria? As I'm sure you've looked at a lot of different tools out there, different data sets. How did you come across company like Synalytics, and then how do you decide to go with them? What was your evaluation criteria? And then the second part of the question I have is, are you actually seeing good ROI from using AI in your green lighting process?
So let me start from the last question. I think it's there's still a way to go before we can connect profitability and return of investment to the use of AI. I think there's still so much that it's up to human decision and factoring the decision-making process that will affect what the returns of investment is. And I think if you use the example of other financial industries where, like hedge funds, for example, using a lot of AI-driven hedge funds, which sometimes outperforms the market, and I think it's based on analytical data that the technology can process. For firms, I think we are not there yet, but that's the direction that we need to follow, where we go hand in hand with the technology to maximize the return on investment. How we scope the market for that AI, well, I think at this stage, it's still like an initial stage. It's not like the very beginning, but I would say we're only a few years into that process. And as much as possible, it should be an open conversation between the end consumers, like it could be engineers or other financiers or producers, and the developer of the AI. Synalytic for us is a good example, because I think Tobias and I met a few years ago and started a conversation around what they were developing and around what we need from the AI. And I think that conversation is still very much ongoing. I think Tobias can talk about it as well. But, you know, I'm not fully satisfied. I'm satisfied with what the technology is, but I don't think we reach an endpoint yet. I think there's so much more that the AI can give. But it's only by asking the technology the right questions then the developer can make something that you need. So it has to be a collective process. I think it has to be an open conversation between, you know, different players in the value chain. I think the value chain ultimately is going to benefit from an increased use of AI and technology, and it's evolving. And I think, you know, the pandemic that is heavily affecting, you know, dramatically affecting our industry. If there's one positive, is that a lot of the conversation that were happening before the pandemic and has been happening for a number of years are now accelerating because of, you know, what's happening. And the technology can play a big role in determining what the future of our industry will look like.
And if I can jump in, I totally agree. And that's for us as sort of a software company that produces, we produce for the film industry, right? Our goal is to help companies be more successful. So our background was of you know, people that are experts in AI from NASA, and myself. I was an independent producer, and I spent in finance, so I know what the finance industry uses in terms of decision support systems, and I know what was lacking in film. But then we also have people that work in studios and were producers. So when we started to build the system, we built it based on our experience, and then we asked companies. But now with our clients, we continuously build out. So what do you guys need? How can we help you? This is our technology. This is how it's evolving. AI is evolving, right? So now we just closed a deal with Fandango. Fandango is working with us with their data exclusively, and we're building models around, you know, the Rotten Tomato scores to help understand, because it's become such an important curation metric for streaming or theatrical. So it's constantly evolving. It's not like this is just, AI is a beautiful thing to crunch numbers. And when applied in the right way, it can be a beautiful thing like Waze that helps you guide it, helps guide people in the film industry. It does make decisions. As Andrea said, we want to build a great Waze. We have a great Waze. We know it works. We have studio clients with Warner Brothers and other studios, and independent clients like Ingenious and others. And we get positive feedback, and we want to build this out. So this is kind of the Waze that we wanted to build to get you to the destination you need to go faster and safer. And we can take into account traffic that as human, yeah, I know how I get from Los Angeles to the Angeles Forest, but do I know how the traffic is? Should I take the highway or the land? I don't know. Waze can tell me, these are the free routes, the traffic's heavy here, there it's not. That's what AI is. It can help you navigate the best way to get there, might save you time or money. And therefore, this is kind of where we sit, and we constantly, it's a very much evolving process continuously.
And I think to finish on that concept, that I think risk mitigation for us is obviously a key, key word, because in making all these decisions and in using these tools, the technology can really help putting all those decisions within a context that through the technology is mitigated, is validated really by not just, you know, someone's opinion within, you know, the exec team, but by using data that's been analyzed by the technology itself. And then, so risk mitigation is a really key component in this kind of decision-making process that is made so much more effective through the AI. And I think from an investor's point of view, ourselves, but also the investors through the investing in Genius and other financiers, knowing that there is that technology assisting the decision-making process, I think is really key.
Yeah, and Tobias, you know, you talked about the two use cases, one in the investment side, the others, you know, you talked about your studio clients. there's been a lot of questions right now from the audience. Is this something that's affordable for independent producers, independent filmmakers? Is this useful or affordable for them, or is it mainly more of an enterprise or portfolio management tool?
No, it's not. This is really for everyone. Of course, it's a user-based system. So for studios, we have a certain number of users, but we are now also working on smaller packages, and we are customizable. So we very much take it user by user to see whether we can accustom to single companies. We're not there that we can provide something extremely cost effective like MDB or anything. Because that's not who we are. It's highly complex technology. It was developed at NASA, and of course, we have to make it a business as well. But we are definitely in a place where it works for the indie industry as well as studio industry, and we are working on models to make it as affordable as possible to also smaller players, because they can benefit the most. For studios, they use data analytics. They can just use their systems to do it faster, and as Andrea said, iterative, right? You can, hey, let's take that actor out, put this actor in, and change release strategy. It takes you 5 seconds to recalculate rather than 5 hours. So that's there. For the independent, there is a lack of understanding often, or in independence, how to do a proper analysis, because most people can't afford an analyst or are not trained in that sphere. And so here we help actually with that value out of them being able to run studio level analysis for an indie project.
So I hope that answers the questions. And if the audience members have any, they have specific use cases, I'm sure they can contact you directly after this.
On the website, please reach out for a demo, and then we get in touch with you and talk to you specifically about how we can make something happen.
Perfect. So I want to switch the conversation and start by asking you, Nadira. The key to, as AI practitioners know, the key is having good data. So can you share maybe some of your approaches towards data collection? Are you looking at public data or proprietary data, or a combination of both? And how do you ensure that data as well as your models are validated? Muted.
My turn. When it comes to data collection, I mean, when we started out, we needed scripts. I remember approaching a few distributors, sales agents, and 5 years ago, data wasn't the new currency, because data today is the new currency. Everybody is talking about data, and everybody is actually, being very protective of their data. But 5 years ago, they were still slightly naive in the sense that when we approached them and we told them what we needed, when it comes to scripts, we needed PDFs and all of that, they were very helpful. So I remember, for example, a certain distributor actually shared their Dropbox with us. And that Dropbox had about 7,000 titles of movies that in various stages, like from early development up to released films or pre-release. It was a combination really for us, because our data set consists out of 30,000 scripts. So it's a combination of getting the scripts from distributors, production companies, sales agents, but also scraping from the internet. Anything that's available has been scraped by our team for sure. When it comes to IMDb, or for example NPS scores, which is the European version of cinema scores, we collaborated with a large cinema chain, and they shared with us their cinema scores, the NPS scores, which allowed us again to use it. So it's really a combination of getting everything from companies, but also combined with scraping. Yeah.
Great. And Tobias, any particular approaches for data collection and validation that you'd like to share?
We very early on we knew that data is key, so we license data. We pay a lot of money for our data sets from the leading providers. It's a huge cost for us, but we thought it's absolutely key to have the best data in order to train our models. And also, of course, then we developed our own data sets and have some proprietary data sets. For example, one that we can monitor global OTT data, which is, of course, has been very helpful now in the pandemic when a lot of it went digital. We can monitor how certain pre-pandemic content worked out, or library content, or whether all the new releases, which were not massive studio hits, but mostly streaming title or indie film that went to streamers, performed in the marketplace. So all that kind of data that's useful. We either license or we built it ourselves. But we have very rigorous data quality approval processes that this data has to go through, because it's key.
But the other interesting aspect for me of the AI here, because obviously data is key, and that's why arguably larger companies like Ingenious have an advantage of newcomer into the investment side of things, because we have all our historic data that we can use, as well as external data set that we can analyze. But I think what the AI can do, especially looking at platforms that don't necessarily want to share their data, they would never share their data, is to use it to predict other patterns that somehow can predict the data that you're after. So you create alternatives, ways to analyze those data they're not directly available to you, but through the technology you can identify those patterns that very, very often do help inform the decision. Again, together with other tools, it's never going to replace entirely, obviously what we do. But I think that is something that only the technology can really do.
So that's a fair point, because there's now, all these walled gardens, right? Like you cannot really access or get any insight into Netflix's data, and that's kind of what you might consider their advantage over certain others, right? So that's an interesting approach, whether you try and infer or even predict. And there's been different platforms out there that are trying to aggregate, including smart TVs and others that are trying to provide some of that access.
Yeah, exactly. You're looking at piracy. You're looking at any other index that somehow can help the decision-making process. And I think simply, maybe because it's a lack of time or resources, we can't spend all the time analyzing that. But through AI, that information is made very easy. And is it gonna really make our decision on investing in a firm at the other? Probably not, but it's another way to analyze it. And again, it goes back to risk mitigation. It goes back to have all the available tools when you make a decision, because it's so easy to get it wrong. But at least you feel like you are being given the best chance to make it right.
I want to move a hot topic. So nowadays, bias in AI is a key thing on every. And it's kind of, this is a general question to everybody. Is that something you think about in your work, or does it affect your work? And if so, what are some ways that you handle bias in the training data or in your models?
So in the end, our models reflect past performance and past viewing of content, and then of course project also in the future. Because when we do make projections, we have different tools. But the predictive tool, for example, when you do projections, that's the advantage to using comps, because people in the industry use comps right now, and you use like 5-6 comps, which is highly subjective. You can't choose 5 films and think that your films be the same. But if you use something like AI, which is a prototyping system, you look at past performance as well, which there might be some bias in there in this data, but then you project in the future, and it's always the last couple of years that you use. So what we saw is, I get the question a lot, and it's like, does it mean when you use AI that it's only going to be Marvel films now, or that kind of blockbuster thing? And I said that's exactly what it's not going to be, because the recent data, especially the ones that heavily used in our models, because we only look at most of the last 3 years, it has a very high skew also to diverse audiences, which is great. So there is not much of a bias there, but also a system like ours actually provides a framework, because a lot of times people resort to IP-based content when they don't have a risk framework, right? You're not going to put 100 million on the line without any risk framework. And running 5 comms and sitting around the table often doesn't cut it. And so what it is, it's then you look at what IP, book, comic book, whatever the superhero is out there that ensures me there's an audience. So this is what happened in the last 5 years. So all these kind of blockbuster, IP-based, prequels, sequels, and so on, they're not the reason that happened not with the AI. That happened because there was no risk framework, and so they went for that strategy. With AI, or with like technology like ours, you can actually prototype content, meaning you have a framework now for original content. You have a framework to running an African American drama or whatever it will be, and understand how this can perform, and you can finance accordingly based on that framework. And our numbers are very as accurate as you can be in this industry. I think there's no, and the thing is, this provides people actually the reason to take greater risk, because they have a framework to analyze it by. You're not going to take any risks if you don't have a framework, because then you're just gambling, and most gamblers lose money, right? And so if you have a framework, then you can use it for original content. And therefore, the bias is not, we didn't see it as a big, coming back to your question, we didn't see it as a big thing, because the recent data is very diverse. And of course, we have to look into what people generally like in order to predict the future. But yeah, we have certain trending algorithms that are part of the predictive and part of our predictive tools that take care of some of it. But yeah, we don't see a big issue there right now.
I'm kind of jumping ahead and peeling a question from the Q&A session. Do you think this is, we'll start noticing a trend as filmmakers approach, investors or studios? Do you think that there'll be a trend data, especially from, tools like Synalytics, like ahead of time to support their projects?
I hope so, because that's the way to get a project done. I mean, just think of it. If you're an investor, so whoever puts money on the line, and if somebody comes and tells you a great story, you have to trust the person quite a lot to put money on the line based on that. Somebody comes with a great story and has some facts that can prove that this can also work in the market, and some convincing facts that are really based on let's say, I mean, we use industry-leading analytics, then that should help convince people. So of course, I think I hope, and the charter showed before with Sundance, that huge, disparity between like 3 billion content produced, the market is 100 million. Maybe some films shouldn't be made, maybe some films should be made a bit different, but it definitely gives you, as Andreas said, a chance to get it right, and hopefully get your film made at the right price and convince investors based on facts.
I think
Do you
also
see the same, Nadira?
Oh yeah, yes. I think also when you pitch a project, I think pitches are also changing in the sense that years ago, if someone would pitch, probably still today, the majority of pitches, they will focus on the content, on the substance of a certain story. I think a pitch is far more stronger and more convincing if you can combine both, if you can bring objectivity along with the subjectivity. For example, we have a lot of independent producers or writers that actually upload their projects onto the platform for analysis. They write and they ask us, oh, can I use this for my pitch? So a lot of those users of our platform, they actually take certain graphs, they take objectivity and they put them in their pitches, because they believe that if you're pitching to an objective party, such as a financier, you'll have a better chance, instead of just telling them oh, I think this project, will be great because I have a gut feeling, because I feel it in my bones. No, it's a far better pitch if you can combine numbers along with sentiment.
But I think that's the key point. I think that, the filmmakers should assume that whoever they're talking to, they have that data. Don't fool yourself. Like, they are, on the industry facing side, they are equipping themselves with that data. So from the creative side of things, of course, you still want to do, what is your creative instinct is telling you. But if you want to be able to breach that, to get into the industry, you have to know what you're talking about. So whether it's like an information gatherer that you need through the AI or not, I think you need to make your pitch stronger by knowing that on the other side of things, they know exactly what they need and what the audience is demanding, etc., etc. So I think it's a necessary step for filmmakers and for the exec to embracing this technology and analyzing as much data as they can. It's not going to change the creative process. We're not going to lose originality. We're not going to lose creativity by doing that.
Right.
You just channel it better. You just get to know your audience better. And there's an audience for anything. So this should not be seen as a stoppage to creativity, but you're talking the same language. You're talking about something that you're knowledgeable about. And if you decide you want to do something about a small niche in a specific territory, specific genre, that's fine. But at least you know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. And I think also getting more people to adopt technology like this, not just companies, but also mainstream people. It's one of the most important steps is talking about this technology and have them use it and test it. It's definitely part of the adoption process. And I think also because there's a lot of fear going on as well in the industry. I hear sometimes fear of losing their jobs to AI and all of that. I think one needs to dive deeper and dig deeper into why is there fear surrounding this AI. It's not that AI is taking over jobs or anything like that. It will allow you to do your job far better. You compare it to a surgeon, to a radiologist. There's so much software out there, AI that actually interprets scans far better than a radiologist. And a radiologist went to med school for 12 years. That's far more than an English literature major, and still they're not thinking about losing their jobs. No, they're actually welcoming AI because it makes them better radiologists. This is how we should approach it. It's not about taking over a job. Nobody's taking anything away. It really is you as a professional becoming a better version of yourself. It's like you do workshops and all of that. You become a better version of yourself. You're better in assessing. You learn more about technology because it is part of our lives. AI technology, it's embedded in everyday life. So of course, also in the film.
Absolutely, and I think this is used correctly that broadens the field for and allows more creative projects to come about, because one of the places that we applied our technology to was a project that was untouched by all this, but we were able to kind of look at some of the tail data, the audience data, the tail libraries out there, and really determine that there's it was a story of animatronic story. It was very unusual. None of the studios would pick it up, but we attached data to that, and then it got picked up by Netflix because again, it was using their models. They found out that there's a niche target audience just for that. So what these type of technologies really do at the end of the day, whether it's in the creative side or the data side, is it helps you find that niche taste, right? The niche audience. And right now there's a growing, like, everybody wants their niche taste to be fulfilled rather than seeing the same repeated patterns. So I think some of the the questions that people might have, or whether this is going to, technology like this is going to make things very mainstream or repeated, that's not really true. In fact, what it does is it allows it opens it up for people with very interesting niche tastes, and also creators who can satisfy those niche tastes. So going, just now something broader, more fun, where do you see the field of AI evolving in the next 5 years? And if you can name a couple of ideal developments, whether it's new algorithms or data or the way the industry works, that would make a big impact for AI in filmmaking.
For example, what I touched on in the beginning of our discussion, I think within the next 5 years we will definitely see more AI-generated content. That's one thing. We are going towards that route for sure, because I'm just going to give you an example. The company Wattpad, for example, they made writing novels, an everyday job for everybody. All of a sudden, it's not, you don't have to be an author or, an educator, writer, that went to school and studied to become a writer, for example. No, all of a sudden, anybody, like a 13-year-old girl can actually write her own romantic novel and gets a lot of feedback from the community. That's what happens for that niche of writing. When it comes to content, more specific art field, I think AI will probably do the same thing. First of all, I think we will see also a change in taste, because let's face it. I mean, you have with TikTok and all of those platforms, they're all taking audiences away from the traditional filmmaking. Let's just go and watch the demographic of TikTok. They rather spend an evening watching dance films, movies on TikTok than watching a heavy drama that's so deep and draining. No, not everybody wants content with substance. Some just want content with no substance, and there's also demographic for that. So I think with AI generated content, because I said earlier as well that we're consuming content at such an accelerated pace, you can't afford spending 2 years in development hell. I can't believe that in 2020 you still have companies that spend 5, 6, 7 years in development for a project. They need to deliver content, because if you spend on projects 2, 3, 4 years developing them, and we keep chewing on content, we keep consuming this content at such a pace, you need to get technology involved that will actually make this content creation more efficient, that actually content creators can deliver much faster. So I think we're headed towards that direction in the next decade, in the next 5 to 10 years. And AI generated content will also be more accepted, in the sense that today, maybe for the traditional moviegoers and traditional entertainment people, they still think, oh, it's something that won't have an audience. I actually am quite sure that AI generated content will have a huge audience, and they will find that audience more into the the millennials and the -18 for sure.
Yeah, I mean, from sort of the industry perspective, I think the best that in the near term that I hope is that the discussion around AI is not a hostile one like it has been in the past quite a time, because often it's about the lack of understanding of what it really means, and it's not a robot that makes films and does this by itself. It's literally, most of what it is at this time is just a supporting mechanism for humans to understand what the opportunities are, how to get there. It's like, that's why my Waze analogy, because it's literally that. It's just supporting you to get to your destination. And however it will develop in the future, it develops the human part, and I think is, in my opinion, for now, will be the key to it all. The person will make the decision. The AI can help, or the data combined with that. It's not just AI. AI alone is also nothing. You need to feed the AI with something. It's not just AI is not just some wonder. It's basically a technology to number crunch something in a very good way that wasn't possible 10 years ago. But you need to feed it with the right thing. So I think that people have to understand that every other industry and every other company uses AI to make better decisions and be successful. And it will help people a lot in the future. It will help find content and produce content that finds their audience in a better way, and increase the profitability. Right now, only 4% of independently produced film breaks even. 4%. It's not a high number. So if we get that to 20% over the next 3 years, or 25, that would be a great goal. And I think technologies with AI can help with that a lot.
I agree. I think like just a broader use of technology in now the industry is what the next 5 to 10 years are going to look like. From whether it's about generating content, as Nadira said, or as the Tobias referred to, profitability and distribution. A lot of programmers and cinema saying are already using AI, but it's it should not be the exception. It should be the norm. The technology is embraced anywhere you are in the value chain, and you familiarize with that, and you make a useful tool, because ultimately it's going to make our life easier and hopefully our industry more transparent and more efficient. It really hurts when you know that there's so many films, as Tobias said, don't make a profit, because it's not just about losing money, but it means that they're not being seen, that there's not an audience, they haven't reached the audience. And that's key, to make things that people want and can access, and that's why that's how the technology can really help.
Absolutely. And what do you think now? Well, turns out we've reached the end of our 1 hour. That's seemed to run by, and we've taken as many questions. I've tried to put that in there. I think we can continue our conversation after this in the breakout rooms. So
thank you.
Thank you all for being part of this, and thank you to the wonderful audience.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.